Hello everybody, it's Foo here, and now we are entering Series 2 VGC where all the crazy Paradox Pokemon are allowed, and I wanted to build around Sandy Shocks, one of the lesser used Paradox Pokemon, which I think is super interesting, and I think I found its perfect partner. This combo is so cool and so effective, and I really can't wait to show you. So Sandy Shocks is a really interesting Pokemon. It's pretty fast with base 101 speed, hits really hard, and has really neat ground electric typing that we don't have in this game outside of Sandy Shocks. Where I think it's really interesting is that it gets the moves Gravity, which allows you to hit flying and levitating opponents with your ground type moves, but it also increases your moves accuracy. So you can use Thunder on this set, which I think is cool. But where it's really strong is when you pair it with Espathra, which is a Hypnosis user with speed boost. So it becomes insanely fast, reliable Hypnosis user. But on top of that, it's also got its signature move Lumina Crash, which deals damage and reduces the opponent's special defense by 2 stages, meaning that you can set up Gravity and put stuff to sleep, and then absolutely delete everything with Lumina Crash and Sandy Shock's powerful moves. I built a team around this. There are some other really strong Pokemon that I think are super cool, so I can't wait to show you, but I figure we could go through some battles and then I'll go into the rental and the details of the team. So in this first battle, it looks like my opponent has a rain component with the Pelipper and the Palafin, but also some strong special attackers in Fluttermane and Hydreigon. On my side, I want to lead with my Sandy Shocks Espathra combo to try and get that Gravity and some sleeps off. And then in the back, I figured that Amoonguss would be important for taking on Rain, and Fluttermane is just very strong, especially into things like Iron Hands, Hydreigon, and the opposing Fluttermane. So my opponent decides to lead with their Pelipper and their Fluttermane, which is a reasonable lead. Fluttermane, if it's booster energy, will outspeed my Pokemon. And by the way, I do have a shiny Sandy Shocks, which I think looks absolutely awesome. Just that golden shininess is wicked. Turns out they are not booster energy on their Fluttermane, so I will outspeed them, unless they're weirdly like Scarf or something. I will outspeed them with my Sandy Shocks, so I can get that Gravity up reliably. They actually switch out their Pelipper, probably fearing the Thunder, but I'm going to actually terrestrialize my Sandy Shocks because I was worried about the Pelipper going for a water type move into my Sandy Shocks, and I figured that if they've got Palafin in the back, grass typing would be great anyway, so I didn't think it would be too bad. And you can see the Terra hat of my my Sandy Shocks is spinning around, which I think is wicked. Anyway, I get the Gravity up, and Fluttermane does get its attack off as it outspeeds the Espathra on this first turn before I've got any speed boosts off. And it does a massive chunk to Sandy Shocks and I get the special attack drop, but I'm able to put Fluttermane to sleep, which is very, very nice. So it'll have one guaranteed turn of sleep, and I outspeed with both of my Pokemon on the following turn. I decide to attack with both into the Iron Hands. If I had managed to get a Lumina Crash and Earth Power off, I would have definitely taken the Iron Hands out, but they do fake out to prevent the Lumina Crash going off, which was probably the correct target because I've got Focus Sash on Espathra too. I get another speed boost with Espathra, and now I can go for the Lumina Crash, and I go for a Thunder into the Fluttermane. My Gravity actually isn't making Thunder any more accurate here because the rain's up, so it would be 100% accurate anyway. You can see that deletes Fluttermane even with the special attack drop on my Sandy Shocks, which is really cool. But unfortunately, Sandy Shocks goes down quite early in this battle because the Iron Hand targets into it. But you manage to see the Hypnosis combo with Gravity and also the Thunder, the Lumina Crash. So that's really cool. I'll show you more of Sandy Shocks in another battle. But right here, I get another speed boost, and we're going to bring in my Fluttermane so you can see Espathra next to Fluttermane, because these two work very similarly with the Lumina Crash just being super strong. I've still got the Gravity as well. So I figured the Hydreigons come in, and it's pretty scary right now. Because I figure it's probably going to terrestrialize, maybe into Steel type if it is Steel. I don't know what Terra type it is, but I thought that maybe if I just double protect, that would be the safest way to scout for it. I could have gone for a Hypnosis into it and maybe an attack into the Iron Hands. I just wasn't 100% confident if it's like an Assault Vest Iron Hands that my Moonblast would have KO'd. Probably would have done in retrospect, but just to play it safe, I decided to double protect to scout for the Hydreigon's Terra type, and it is Terra Steel. But I figure a Lumina Crash into a Shadow Ball will probably actually take out that Hydreigon. I didn't want to go in for that the previous turn because obviously if it stayed Dark type, Lumina Crash, it would be immune to that, so I couldn't have made that play. But now I know I can make the play, I could double into it. However, my opponent makes a really good play, and this is where I realize that I'm playing against someone who really knows what they're doing, because they protect their Hydreigon to get a Tailwind up so that they will then outspeed my Fluttermane with their Hydreigon. My Espathra has got too many speed boosts, so it will still outspeed, but because the gravity returns to normal, I can't reliably go for Hypnosis anymore. So that is a bit of an awkward situation. Right now, I just want to stall out the Tailwind turns, so I switch into my Amoonguss and hope that I can absorb a ton of hits and just wait out this Tailwind. I get an Lumina Crash into the Hydreigon, as I figure they're probably going to be attacking into the Fluttermane, because that's really the big threat on my side of the field, and you can see the Flash Cannon does go into Amoonguss. I don't take too much damage, especially considering that it's a Life Orb Hydreigon, but the Hurricane into Espathra does a lot of damage. I do survive, but I get confused, which really sucks. Another speed boost with Espathra. At this point, I'm just super fast outspeeding everything. I go for a Protect on my Espathra because I do figure that it's going to be important in the end game, especially taking down the Iron Hands. So I want to preserve it this turn. As the Draco Meteor comes out into Amoonguss, and Amoonguss survives, and this is just another EV spread that I'm super proud of. I know that that was probably a roll because it was literally 1 HP, but that was amazing. So now Hydreigon's -2 special attack, which is a good position to be in, but also anything at this stage would take out my Espathra, so I need to be careful around that. And I do get the Spore off into Pelipper, which is really going to help me stall out these Tailwind turns. So now I can go for a Rage Powder. The Hydreigon will have to attack into Amoonguss if it wants to attack, and I can get an attack off into Pelipper just to whittle it down with my Espathra. Apart from that, I hit myself in confusion. I was super worried, but it didn't actually take out Espathra. It only did 12 HP, so Espathra's still around, but that Pelipper would have been chipped, which is unfortunate. But again, Amoonguss's EV spread is just blowing my mind right now, because it manages to hang on with that Flash Cannon. If they'd gone for Draco there, then Amoonguss would have gone down, but it's sticking around. These two Pokemon on 8 and 7 HP respectively, absolutely insane. As the opponent's going to switch out their Hydreigon now and bring in their Iron Hands as Tailwind has worn off. This is really great positioning on their part. I go for a Rage Powder and just want to try to get some damage into this Pelipper to prevent it from getting another Tailwind up, and I can get a Lumina Crash into it. If I managed to get the one off the previous turn, then I could have taken this Pelipper out right now, but obviously that wasn't the case because of the confusion. The Pelipper doesn't wake up this turn, but I'm in a really awkward position now because Fake Out is threatening my Espathra, and their Pelipper is very much going to get Tailwind because my Amoonguss does not outspeed this turn if they wake up. I make a good prediction in bringing my Fluttermane in on the Fake Out, but the Pelipper does get the Tailwind off, which is pretty unfortunate, as I go for a Sludge Bomb into it, trying to take it out before it can wake up, but it woke up, got the Tailwind, and now I've taken it out so that the opponent gets a free switch into their Hydreigon, which puts me in a really awkward position. So right now, I could Rage Powder Shadow Ball into the Hydreigon to take it out, and I assume that my Fluttermane will outspeed the Iron Hands even in Tailwind. So that's a play that I could make, but knowing that my opponent is a good player, I need to try to predict around that, because if they go for a Protect this turn and try to take out my Amoonguss so I can't go for the Rage Powder, then I could be in a really bad position. So I need to find the substitute play with Fluttermane. If I manage to get the substitute up, because I'm predicting them to Protect with Hydreigon, then I'm in a great position, and I do manage to find that play in the nick of time. So I'm going to go for a sub with my Fluttermane, and I predict them to attack into my Amoonguss with their Iron Hands to take it out so that it can't go for the Rage Powder. So the substitute goes off. We do see the Protect with that Hydreigon, which is a great start, and the Iron Hands does target the Amoonguss. If it had targeted the Fluttermane there, it wouldn't have been the worst position, because I can start to wear out the Tailwind turns. But now I managed to find that play, I can go for the Rage Powder with my Amoonguss. Flash Cannon is going to go into the Amoonguss, and I can take out the Hydreigon while keeping my substitute. So this is a fantastic position to be in, because I've still got that like 8 health Espathra in the back. So the Hydreigon goes down here because of the Life Orb chip and the slight chip from a Lumina Crash earlier in the game. so it's in range of my Life Orb Shadow Ball. That goes down. Just a note, Fluttermane is Life Orb and Substitute, so it takes a lot of chip damage, but it's quite frail anyway, so I feel that that's reasonable to have such, self-damaging moves. The Thunder Punch comes out from the Iron Hands, and it can take out my Substitute, but as I said, I'm in a pretty great position because I can go straight into my low HP Espathra, and I've got the Lumina Crash and the Moonblast into it. The opponent's Tailwind is still there for one more turn, so I decide to double protect just in case Iron Hands outspeeds my non-boosted Espathra while it's in Tailwind, so I can wear off the last turn of Tailwind. It also allows my Espathra to get the speed boost to outspeed Fluttermane, so that I can then go for a Lumina Crash and ensure the -2 special defense on the Iron Hands before I go for the Moonblast, so I can really ensure that I take it out. I think all of this was actually overkill in the end, because looking at the damage that my Lumina Crash is about to do to this Iron Hands, I'm not even sure if it was Assault Vest, and if it wasn't very much invested in special defense, because the Lumina Crash would have been a 2-hit KO, and this is a Life Orb Moonblast from the Fluttermane, so I can take down the Iron Hands for the win. That was a super intense match. I really, really liked it because it basically showed off every single Pokemon set to the best. Like, I clicked every single move on all of my Pokemon apart from Protect on Sandy Shocks and Dazzling Gleam on my Espathra, which is pretty crazy. So it showed the power of Substitute Fluttermane, it showed the Gravity Hypnosis combination, it showed the Lumina Crash boosting the damage of my special attackers, it just showed off how ridiculous Amoonguss is at sponging hits, redirecting, getting the spores off, and doing some nice damage with Sludge Bomb as well. I've gone for Sludge Bomb with a bit of special attack investment, just to have a better matchup into Brute Bonnet and to do some more damage to the fairy types. So I really, really loved that match to show off the team. And here is the team. So to run through it, you've seen the Espathra and Sandy Shocks combo, you've got the Gravity Hypnosis, but you've also got the Lumina Crash combination with the powerful attacks from my Sandy Shocks. And that's really the go-to lead in most situations. The only times I would say you have to watch out are against an Icy Wind Iron bundle that might outspeed you if it does have the booster energy itself, and also some Trick Room leads, in which case I would advise you probably don't want to go with these two into Trick Room. Other Pokemon on the team, we've got Fluttermane here as just a very strong special attacker that pairs really well with the Espathra and can make the most of sleeping Pokemon with Substitute. The Amoonguss is good for Trick Room matchups and Brute Bonnet, as well as just protecting your frailer attackers. Arcanine is very good for the Trick Room matchups as well, especially into things like Indeedee Armarouge. You can get some Snarls off, which ignore redirection. And Will-O-Wisp is super good for helping with things like Iron Hands. And even Dondozo, you can switch in, get Intimidate, get some burns with the Will-O-Wisp. So Arcanine is really, really nice. And the last Pokemon is one of my favorite on the team, which is Corviknight. I think Corviknight stocks are on the rise in Series 2. It's a very reliable Tailwind setter because it's so bulky. It has a decent matchup into Fluttermane, which it threatens the one-hit KO on, and Iron Bundle because it can reflect Icy Wind speed drops back at it, and it can't be intimidated because of the Mirror Armor too. It's got the safety goggles, so again, it's a decent match into things like Amoonguss, which is great. And it's also shiny, which gives me great pleasure aesthetically for this team because I've got a shiny Sandy Shocks, which is all gold, and then a shiny Corviknight, which is all silver, and I think that they look beautiful together. So that's the team. I want to show you the other elements of the team working. So I've got this other battle to show you, and I think just with these two battles, you see all the elements of the team coming together, which I think is just so cool. So this one is against a team that is going round at the moment, which is an Acid Spray Booster Energy Iron Moth next to Fluttermane, which has a similar synergy to the Lumina Crash Sandy Shocks combo. You reduce the opponent's special defense and then do massive damage to them with your Fluttermane, but they've got some interesting other Pokemon on there, like Dondozo, which we all know and love from Series 1, and then Gholdengo and Kingambit 2. So what I went for with this battle was Corviknight and Arcanine to lead, because they have a decent matchup into both Dondozo and the Fluttermane Iron Moth combination. And then I went with Espathra and Sandy Shocks in the back, having having the gravity for late game, which I thought was an interesting choice. So let's get into this one. Unfortunately, Tato doesn't have a particularly interesting trainer card, which is a bit disappointing considering it's a kind of an interesting name. But regardless, we'll get into the match, and they do lead with the Fluttermane Ironmoth combination that I was just talking about, with the Acid Spray and then the powerful moves from the Fluttermane. On the first turn here, I'm concerned about fire moves coming out into Corviknight. Fluttermane can even run Mystical Fire, so I want to avoid getting like a one-hit KO on my Corviknight. I do want to set up Tailwind with Corviknight, but I just feel that first turn is probably not the best approach to do that. It would be a little bit too risky. I do have Snarl on my Arcanine, and I feel that Snarl is just the best play on this first turn. My opponent is, you see the Protect coming off, my opponent's actually going to go straight for the Acid Spray strategy into my Arcanine, so they didn't go for the fire type moves. And looking at this Shadow Ball damage, it's definitely a choice specs Fluttermane, so that's really good knowledge. What's interesting is I'm Covert Cloak Arcanine, so I knew I was quite safe doing this play because the Acid Spray does not cause special defense drops onto my Covert Cloak Arcanine, so I'm able to survive that. And now I'm going to go for the Tailwind because both Pokemon have got the special attack drop, and because I know that Fluttermane can't go for a fire type move, I'm pretty sure that this Tailwind is gonna work. So the Heat Wave does come off, and actually Corviknight dodges, which is really nice for me. It would definitely have survived. You'll see that it would have definitely survived that turn, and Arcanine is able to avoid the Shadow Ball damage there very nicely. So I can get the Tailwind off, and my Pokemon will outspeed next turn, although actually Corviknight doesn't outspeed a +1 Ironmoth, so that's something to bear in mind. I'm going to go for the Iron Head into Fluttermane and Snarl here. Actually, on retrospect, this may not have been the strongest play because they could have King Gambit in the back, and that was a very, very weak play in case they switched Fluttermane out into King Gambit. You see how little the Heat Wave does there to Corviknight because of the Snarl drops and everything. It is able to eat that attack up easily, and I can get the one-hit KO with the Iron Head into Fluttermane, which is one of the reasons why I think Corviknight is so strong now. You can get the Tailwind, outspeed, and one-hit KO Fluttermanes, which is super cool, as well as the Mirror Armor just being a great ability to have. Gholdengo comes in here, and my Corviknight doesn't have a great matchup into Gholdengo, but I can do some damage with Brave Bird into the Ironmoth as I just go for another Snarl here, wanting to reduce the opponent's special attack even further. I obviously hit the Protect into the Gholdengo, but want to get some more damage and some more special attack drops into the Ironmoth. It's now -3, so this Heat Wave shouldn't be doing much damage at all to my Pokemon. Corviknight manages to dodge again, while Arcanine manages to survive on a tiny sliver of HP, and I do a really good amount to that Ironmoth with another Brave Bird. So Ironmoth did hang on, unfortunately, but as you can see, this is an adamant Corviknight with a lot of attack investment, so that Brave Bird is doing a ton of damage, which is super good. Right now I want to go for a Heat Wave with my Arcanine. I'm hoping that it will take out the Ironmoth, and I want to go for an Iron Head into the Gholdengo just for the flinch chance and to chip it down a little bit. My Corviknight doesn't have much else to do right now, and I don't particularly want to switch into the Pokemon in the back. I'm hoping that I can get both Espathra and Sandy Shocks out at the same time. So I kind of want both of these Pokemon to go down together, and I'm kind of positioning myself into a point where that's actually likely if they click Make It Rain and Heat Wave at the same time. My Tailwind peters out, and I'm just going to try to get it up again here, because if I can get the Tailwind up with my two Pokemon in the back, they will definitely be faster than our Ironmoth. Without the Tailwind, Ironmoth will outspeed. But Corviknight's a little bit low here, so if they do go for like a Make It Rain and a Heat Wave and Gholdengo outspeeds Corviknight, then I won't be able to get my Tailwind off. So here I'm going to go for a Snarl again. No, do I go for a Snarl? Yeah, I go for a Snarl because I want to reduce the damage further. You can see that Heat Wave finally takes Arcanine out after staying on the field for so long after that first turn double up, and it was on red health from the first turn. It managed to survive so long, and I can get the Tailwind up, which is really, really good. I didn't expect to get that up, but I actually outsped the Gholdengo, so it's seemingly a very bulky Gholdengo if my Corviknight outspeeds. I do have a lot of speed investment in my Corviknight, but not so much that that Gholdengo can't outspeed. I would have expected Gholdengo to be faster. But now I can bring in my shiny Sandy Shocks. I love these two next to each other. I think that they look so good. And I get the booster energy. Because of Tailwind, I do outspeed the Iron Moth. Without that, I wouldn't. And this isn't a bad position right now. I can try to get a KO on Iron Moth with the Corviknight. Although, again, I don't outspeed, so Iron Moth may be able to take out Corviknight here. And I'll attack with an Earth Power into the Gholdengo, hoping that it's not like Terra Flying, which you did see a little bit, but not so often. The Gholdengo obviously doesn't take any damage from the Earth Power, as Heat Wave does come out and knocks out my Corviknight. But this allows me to bring in Espathra, and I now have the golden team together. Espathra and Sandy Shocks are so good next to each other, and I'm in a decent position right now because I can just double attack. I'm assuming that my Espathra and Tailwind will outspeed their +1 Iron Moth because they are similar speed, but +2 is better than +1. So yeah, I'm going to go Lumina Crash into the Iron Moth and an Earth Power into Gholdengo and hope for a 2-hit KO. So we'll have to see if the opponent has any counterplay to that. And I'm really wondering what's in the back, because with all the snarling, I was thinking that Kingambit might make an appearance. I'm able to take out the Gholdengo with the Earth Power, so that's a good start to the turn. And then the Lumina Crash does come out and it can take out the Iron Moth too. So we were in really good position there. Now they only have one Pokemon left against my 2, and I still have Tailwind turns. So this is looking pretty decent. We get the speed boost on Espathra, so now it will outspeed the Sandy Shocks. What's the last? It is actually Kingambit. So I think that they could have maybe switched this in earlier in the match, and I maybe should have been going for more Heat Waves with my Arcanine to cover for that. But even if I did give the Kingambit Defiant boost with Snarl, I had Will-O-Wisp on my Arcanine, so I don't think it would have been the end of the world. Right now, I want to go for a Gravity with Sandy Shocks. I can't go for the Hypnosis with Espathra on this turn because Espatra's already got a speed boost, so it's already outspeeding. So I'm just going to go for Dazzling Gleam to get some chip, as the Kingambit goes for a Terra into the Flying type. So this is like a Terra that would have been a bit worrying if I had been spamming Earth Power, but I'm so glad I went for Gravity this turn, because it means that then I have the accurate Thunders to go for the following turn. So you can see the Kingambit's falling out of the sky. Why is there a Kingambit in the sky? Only in Scarlet and Violet. The Kowtow Cleave comes out. It does a lot of damage, but my Sandy Shocks does hang on. Sandy Shocks has really nice natural bulk, and this turn I really need to avoid any Sucker Punch damage, so I can go quite safely for the Hypnosis and the Protect, and neither of my Pokemon can get hit by Sucker Punch in that case. We see that the Sucker Punch does actually come out, and it's going to fail, but that's super good for me because it means that the opponent doesn't even get to burn a turn of sleep this turn, because they outsped the Hypnosis because they went for this priority Sucker Punch. So this following turn, they have no chance to outspeed my Pokemon. I can go for the Lumina Crash, reduce their special defense by 2 stages, and then the Thunder. So even if they're Assault Vest, this should KO. I know that the Lumina Crash will activate their Defiant, but I'm super not worried because I'm so confident that this will KO the Kingambit. The Thunder will just come out from the sky and yeah, take it down. And that's going to be the second match. So I found it really interesting using the Gravity combo like at the end game, because usually I lead with it, but it was a really nice win condition right at the end, bringing it in and ensuring my accurate Thunders with the Gravity. So yeah, that was a super fun match, and I really liked that I could show off the Arcanine and the Corviknight in that match, because I think that they are very important for the team synergy. The Arcanine is really important for taking on some of these special attackers and really reducing their damage output, and physical attackers because you have the Intimidate and the Will-O-Wisp there as well. I like having Heat Wave because it pairs well with the Lumina Crash on the Espathra. And all in all, I just think it's a team that meshes really nicely together. I really enjoy this team. I think it looks cool as well. The shiny Corviknight and the shiny Sandy Shocks just make me happy. So I really hope that you try it out and have fun with this one. It's definitely one of my favorite teams that I've made in Scarlet and Violet so far. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more content, and let me know what you think of the team in the comments section below. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.